today's class we'll discuss the basic loop structures. Loop structures are also called as iterative statements. To make you understand what is meant by iterative statements, because I believe that everybody here know what is meant by a loop. But for the students who still don't know what is meant by an iterative statement, let me give you an analogy. Let me give you an analogy. Okay, so the analogy is, say for example, you want to make a coffee. Okay, so we are saying like you want to make a coffee. So to make coffee, what you will be doing, you are taking milk. Okay, to make a coffee, what you will be doing is you have taken milk and coffee, and now the thing is like you want to add sugar. Okay, so you want to add sugar into this particular coffee. What you'll do in the first step, what you'll do, okay, so the first step of adding sugar is you'll be taking half teaspoon. Okay, so you'll be taking half teaspoon, and what you'll do, you'll put this half teaspoon into this tumbler, and then you'll stir it, right? What you'll do, you'll put the sugar and you'll stir it, and after stirring it, what you'll do, after stirring it, what you'll do, you will taste it. Okay, so you will taste it. If your taste bud says that, okay, the amount of sugar that you have put in the coffee is appropriate or it is good for your taste buds, then you'll stop and you'll drink the coffee. Okay, now if your taste bud says that the sugar quantity is less, then what you'll do, you'll take another half tablespoon or teaspoon, and what you'll do, you'll again put this half teaspoon into this particular coffee, and then you'll stir it. Okay, so after stirring it, again you'll taste it. Okay, so now again after tasting, if your taste bud says okay, this is appropriate, you'll stop and you'll drink the coffee. Else what you'll do is you'll again add half teaspoon. Okay, so this is an analogy. This is an analogy you can just apply to your loops. Okay, so now what you're doing is, this tasting is nothing but checking of some condition. Okay, so this tasting is nothing but checking of some condition. What condition here you are checking? The condition is whether sugar is appropriate or not. And based on these conditions outcomes, based on the results that you get out of this condition, you're either iterating through the same process that you have done previously, or you're continuing with the next step. Okay, so if this condition is evaluating to be true, okay, so then what you're doing, if it is appropriate, say that if it is appropriate, you're going with the next step of drinking the coffee. Okay, so if for example say that your taste buds are saying that this coffee, this sugar is not sufficient, then you're iterating through the loop. Whatever maybe is your condition, based on the outcomes you are writing your code. Okay, so here stirring of the sugar inside the glass or tumbler is called as loop body. Okay, so based on the condition you're stirring it. Your stirring means that execution of this particular statements. Okay, I hope everybody understood what is meant by iteration in a real life example. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there are two kinds of iterative statements over here that Python supports. The first one is the while and the second one is for. Like you have three kinds of loops in C programming. The first one is while, second one is for, and the third one is do while. Okay, so you have three iterative statements in C programming. And in Java, you are having four iterative statements. You also have for each statement in Java. Okay, so this is the comparison between the three programming languages. And in Python, you just have while and for. but you can make a while in such a way that it behaves like a do while. Okay, so you can write the code in such a way that it acts like a do while. The difference between do while and while is that in the do while statement, even if the condition is true or false, the statements will execute, the body will execute at least once. In while, like, it is a pretest condition, wherein if the condition is false, the statements never get executed. So that's the difference between while and do while. And you can actually create a do while by while using while loop. Okay, so you can create a do while using while loop. Now we'll start with the first iterative statement, which is while. So this is what is called a stop checking loop. Why it is called a stop checking loop or pre-checking loop? Okay, so pre-condition. So there will be a condition. So based on the condition's outcome, the statement block executed or not executed is decided. Now, before the while, there are certain statements which are called as statement X and all that. And this is the syntax how you will be giving a while. So while followed by a condition, this parenthesis is optional. If you want your program to be more readable, you can give it in parentheses. And having a semicolon, having a colon at the end is mandatory. Okay, so you just need to put a colon. Even if it is if or whatever it is, you have to put a colon. Whenever you're writing a block, you need a colon over here. And this is the body of the while. So statement block is the body of the while. And after while, there are certain other statements which are statement while. Now, how this executes? Okay, so what is the procedure? Okay, so the procedure is, so I'll explain you the procedure showing you the flow chart. Now from the statement X, the condition is checked. Okay, so this condition is having two outcomes. So there is a branch. Okay, so there are two outcomes. The first one is if the condition evaluated to be true. Okay, so the condition is evaluating to be a Boolean expression. So if it is true, what happens is the statement block is executed and some updation to this particular condition variable or the looping variable takes place. And then again back the condition is checked. So you can observe that it is something like this. Okay, so it's looping around like this. Okay, so it's looping around like this. So if the condition, so now when this condition becomes false, this updation of the condition expression is important. This updation of the condition expression is important because that will actually push this condition towards being false. Okay, so this updation is very important. So you should not make your loop an infinite loop. Okay, so infinite loop is a very bad programming wherein you will be making your loop execute for an infinite times. And that should not be the case. Every time you write a loop, it should be finite. And every time the loop executes and subsequently when it advances to the next iterations and all that, it should be moving towards the false case. Okay, so like that you have to write. And what is the statement that will push the condition towards being false is this updation of the loop variable. So this step is very important. Okay, so the block of statements are executed and inside this block of statements inside the while, there should be a statement which will be pushing this condition to being false, making it finite. Okay, so never make your loop to be infinite, but somehow if your loop has become infinite, then you can press Ctrl C on your console to come out of the loop. So the other outcome of this your condition is being false. Okay, so if it is false, these statements over here, the statement block and all this never get executed. Okay, so they never get executed and the control jumps from the condition to the immediate next statement after the while. So the immediate next statement after the while is statement X. Okay, so this is how your while executes, which you already know, right? So herein I have given you certain example of how to put while in Python program. So the purpose of this program is to print. Okay, so what is this program? This program is to print the numbers from 0 to 4. Okay, so to do that, I have initialized I is equal to 0. Now what is I over here? Okay, so I is called as the looping variable. Okay, so we call this as the looping variable. So I over here is the looping variable. Then I have given while. So this is the syntax. Everything is in lowercase. And then I have given my condition here, which is I is less than 5. Okay, so the condition is evaluated to be true or false. Okay, so now since I gave I to be 0, so I is less than 5 has evaluated to be true. Okay, so this is the first iteration. So when I has evaluated, this condition has evaluated to be true, it enters into the body of the loop. Okay, so what is there inside the body of the loop? Inside the body of the loop, we are just printing the value of I. Okay, so I have printed the value of I, which is 0. And what is happening in the next step? It is incrementing. So I am saying I is equal to I plus 1. You don't have this I plus plus and all that stuff. So you simply have to say I plus is equal to 1 or I is equal to I plus 1. Okay, so now what happened? The value of I has changed to, okay, so the value of I has changed to 1. Now what happened? So this is the second iteration. Okay, so in the second iteration, again we are checking for I is less than 5, which is 1 is less than 5, which has evaluated to be true. Okay, so then what we are doing, we are entering into the into the while loop and printing the value of I, which is 1. Again, I is getting incremented and I value has become now 2. Okay, so this is the third iteration. Now 2 is less than 5. The condition is true. Okay, so this kind of loop iteration table you need to maintain so that you will understand what exactly is happening inside the loop, because loops are certain constructs wherein the bugs creep in very frequently. Okay, so you should be very careful with the lower bound and the upper bound of the loops. So again, the condition has evaluated to be true and I is printed, which is 2. In the fourth iteration, what happens is, since I has become 3, 3 is less than 5, the condition has evaluated to be true, and the value of I is printed, which is 3. Then I is equal to I plus 1 happens, which is the 4. I has become 4, and this is the fifth iteration. Okay, so what and all I'm writing here are the iterations. 4 is less than 5. Okay, so the condition has become true and 4 is printed on the screen. And now the value of I, so this is the sixth iteration. In the sixth iteration, I has become incremented and I has become 5. So 5 is less than 5. Now the condition has evaluated to be false. Okay, so when the condition has evaluated to be false, it will come to immediate next statement after while. So since there are no statements after while, so the control will break and the output is shown to you. So what is the output? This is what gets printed. This is what is your output. So what is the output? 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's what we have got over here. Now, such type of questions are given in your placement. Like they'll ask you, they'll give you a lower bound and upper bound like this. And they'll say how many times the condition is checked. Okay, so in this case, the condition is checked 6 times. Okay, so this is very important. Like you need to know the exact execution so that you will be able to tell the number of times. But generally, whenever you look, like you will be saying that the loop is executed 5 times or the loop is tested for 5 times. No, it is tested for the 6th time. 6th time, it becomes false. Okay, but the condition is checked, right? So this is important in terms of your placements and MCQs. Okay, so this is how the while loop gets executed, and this is an iteration table. So this iteration table will help you understand while loops better. Now coming to the next example. Okay, so I have written the same program. So here, if you see that the output is given one after the other in different lines, in new lines. But if I want the output to be printed in the same line, in a single line, I can use a statement over here which says end is equal to, and I can give space or I can give asterisks or whatever. So I have shown this in the previous examples as well. So herein I am giving a tab. So what does it mean is after each and every output, it will give a tab. You know what is a tab? Tab is 8 columns of space. So what it will do is between these two, this is the first output it is printing from the first iteration. So this is the second output it is printing from the second iteration. So in between this, it will give a tab over here. Okay, right. So this is what is printing in a single line. So you can use this end. Okay, so end and separator and all this you can use. Separator is actually a space. Okay, so here instead of new line, you want a tab. Okay, so if you want a tab instead of a new line, so you can use this particular statement. Okay, you can say end is equal to, and then in double quotes you can put whatever you want. Right. This is another example wherein we are taking the floating points as into the loop. Okay, so what we are saying, f is equal to, you're reading some floating value. So I have read 1.2 over here. Okay, so then we are checking for the condition. If the condition is true, then this is executed. What is this? This is the body of the while. Okay, so this is the body of the while. How you are knowing it is the body of the while is because of the indentation. Okay, so you can see that there is an indentation over here. Okay, so that's how the indentation will define the block. So here this is the while block, which is also called as the body of the while. So if the condition is true, then the body of the while is executed, else it is not executed. It goes to, if the condition is false, it goes to the immediate next statement after while. So here an increment is happening, increment plus 1 is happening, and the values are printed over there. Okay, right. So this is another example wherein we are taking we want the sum and average of first 5 numbers. Okay, so the first 5 numbers, right? So the lower bound is 1 and the upper bound is, I have taken the first 10 numbers. Okay, right. So we are printing the sum and average of the first 10 numbers, not 5 numbers. It is the first 10 numbers, right? So the lower bound is 1 and the upper bound is 10. So we have put the looping variable accordingly. I is equal to 1 and I is less than or equal to 10. You can observe a colon over here, which is the syntax. And then we are, see here, the scope of the variable is also very important. Okay, so since I have, if you're declaring without declaring sum over here, if you're declaring sum only inside the while, after this while block, this sum will not be recognized. So the scope of the variable, whenever you write a program, remember that you need to keep in mind the scope of the variable. Okay, so the scope of the variable is like, in case if you're declaring a variable inside a particular block, the variable will not be available outside the block. So whenever you write programs, and if you want the variable to be available outside the block, make it a variable so that it is reachable inside the every part of your program. Okay, so write it outside the block. If you want to access it even outside the block, it is better you declare the variable outside the block. Okay, so the scope of the variable is important, so that you need to keep this in mind because you don't want any errors inside your program, right? So here I have done this, and this is the logic that we are applying. The logic is that sum is equal to sum plus 1. So initially I am taking 0, so it will make 0 plus 1. So this 0 plus 1 will be in the sum now, and plus we are again doing 1 plus 2. So wherein 3 will be there inside the sum. In the next case, we are saying 3 plus 3. So this whole result will be there in sum. So 6 will be there in the sum. And then we are saying 4. Likewise, we are doing. So this is the logic we are applying. It doesn't mean that you also have to follow the same logic. If you can better this algorithm in any other way, if you can solve this problem in other than this particular logic, you can absolutely do that. Okay, and this is the block of while. Inside this we have this loop variable updation, so wherein we are saying I is equal to I plus 1. So at each and every iterations, it will be moving towards the condition being false. Okay, so that you should not forget the initialization. Okay, so this is what is the initialization of the looping variable. This is the condition, and the condition need to be written properly based on the initialization. And then this is the increment or decrement that we are talking about, which is called as an updation. So these are the three things that a loop should hold, and you should be writing them very carefully whenever you're writing a loop. Make sure all these three are in sync. Okay, so all these three should be in sync, else your loop will not iterate. Okay, so after this, when it has made all the sum, so this condition will become false. Once this condition becomes false, it comes to the immediate next statement after while. So what is the immediate next statement after while? It is the this print statement. Okay, so the sum of the first n numbers is, so I am printing the sum. So the first 10 numbers sum is 55. So 55 is given on the screen. Now I'm saying average is equal to sum by I. Okay, so I can also say sum by I, where I is not confined to the loop. It is declared outside the loop, so it is available throughout the program. So when you can also say I, okay, so or I minus 1. So you can also use I over here in case if you want to, but I also have used 10 over here. Okay, so right, you can use any of the variables. That's what I just wanted to convey. Okay, so next I'm saying average of the first 10 numbers is this average, which is calculated, and the average is printed. Okay, so this is how you write a program to sum and average the first 10 numbers. Okay, so this is another program wherein we are trying to take the limit. Okay, so rather than saying first 10 numbers, I am taking the numbers from n to m and then sum it up and give the average. So here, if you see, like in the first output, I have given n to be 4 and m to be 9. So what happened? So it is taking the numbers. Okay, so and it is giving me the answer over here. Okay, so likewise we are trying to do here. In this case, what happened is the limit is not matching. Okay, so the condition is like n is less than or equal to m, but here n is greater than m. So what happens? The condition has become false and it goes to the immediate next statement after while, which is like the sum of numbers. Okay, so the sum of numbers is, because it didn't calculate anything, it will take the initialized value of sum, which it will give 0, and the average is also will become 0.0. Okay, so these are the two outcomes. Okay, so I just showed you this output 1 is the case when the condition becomes true, and this output 2 is the case where the while loop condition has evaluated to be false. Okay, right. So that's it regarding while loop. Everybody understood what is a while loop?
Yes, ma'am.
Emma?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so now let us move on towards the for loop. Okay, for is the most widely used looping constructor. Okay, and loop, what is a loop? Loop means repeat statements execution until a condition is true. Okay, fine. Now for loop is also called as determinate or definite loop. Okay, so we are having another, this is an advantage of the for loop actually. When do you use for loop? So the answer is that because for loop is also called as determinate or definite loop, which means that when you know the number of iterations beforehand, like you for sure know that I'm going to iterate 5 times, then you will be choosing for loop. Okay, so for loop is chosen in that cases. The for statement, okay, so the syntax is like for in statement is used to iterate over a sequence of objects. Okay, so this is used to iterate over a sequence of objects, and this is the syntax of it. So I am having the for keyword, everything is in lowercase, and then you have this loop control variable, which can be I or J or whatever. And then you're having another keyword over here, which is in, and then the sequence. Okay, and the statement block, which is the block of for. So this is the syntax of the for loop. Now let us look into the flowchart of the for. Okay, now in the flowchart of the for, what we are doing is we'll specify the range of the sequence. So herein we are having a range function. I'll tell you what is a range function and all that. So we'll be specifying the range of the sequence, and then is loop control variable in the specified range. Okay, so if the loop control variable is in the specified range that you have mentioned, then it is true. Okay, so then the for block executes. If the loop control variable is not in the specified range, it means that it is false. So statement block 2 will be executed. The statement block 2 is nothing but the immediate statement after the for loop. Okay, so the immediate statement after the for loop, which is nothing but statement block 2, will be executed if the loop control variable is not in the specified range. That means it is false. Okay, so these are the two outcomes of for loop. The first outcome is being true. When it is true, when the loop control variable is in the specified range. It is false when the loop control variable is not in the specified range. Now we'll take a look at what is meant by range and all that. Range of sequence is specified only once. So you'll be just specifying the range using the range function, and you have to use range function only once. And so the items of the sequence, okay, so if you say 1 comma 10, the items are from 1 to 10, right? And 1 to 9, which is 10 minus 1. So the items of the sequence are assigned to the looping variable one after the other. Okay, so if you are saying 1 comma 10, which means that the items in the sequence are from 1 to 9. Okay, so 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma up to 9. Okay, so 1 comma 3 comma 4 comma up to 9. Okay, so these are the items in the sequence. So what happens is this loop variable will take these items one after the other. First it will take 1, and next it will take 2, next it will take 3. Okay, so like that it takes, and every time it checks whether the loop variable is in the specified range or not. If it is not in the specified range, then the loop will come out of the loop. Then the control will come out of the loop, and it will go to the immediate next statement after the loop. Okay, so every time the loop control variable keeps itself updating through the sequence of the numbers. Now this is the range function. Okay, so the range function is a built-in function. It produces a sequence of numbers starting with beginning. Okay, so inclusive with ending. Ending, as I said, like when I say 1 comma 10, the range of numbers will be from 1. Okay, so 1 will be included, 1, 2, then 3, 4, okay, 5, 6, so on. Okay, so on till end minus 1. What is end? End is 10. So 10 minus 1. So till 9, the numbers will be there in the sequence. Okay, so this is how the range function works. And by default, every number is incremented by 1. Okay, so by default, it is incremented by 1. When I say 1 comma 10, it means that the range of the numbers are from 1, 2, 3, wherein you can say the difference between 1 and 2 is 1. So it is incremented, like 1 plus 1 is becoming 2, and 2 plus 1 is this. So this is an increment. But if you want the increment to happen other than 1, okay, so then you can mention it in the step argument. Okay, so the step argument is an optional argument. It can be positive or negative, but not 0. You cannot make it 0. Okay, so it can be positive or negative. Now coming to the first one, so there are 3 arguments inside your range function. So the first one is beginning, and the second one is end, and this is optional. That's why it is put in the square brackets. So this is the range function. Now let us see some examples of how to use this range function inside the loop. Now this is a very simple program which will be producing this output. Okay, so which will be printing the numbers from 1 to 5. As I said, like 1 is inclusive. This 6 means that it is the end, which means that 6 minus 1, that is 5. So the numbers in the sequence are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so now what happens is, how this executes is, I will take 1 first. Okay, and the condition is that when I is equal to 1, okay, so when I is equal to 1, it will check whether this 1 is in the sequence, in the range or not. So this is what is the condition check over here. So 1 is in the range. Okay, so 1 is in the range. So the condition has evaluated to be true. what will happen? It will print the value of a 1. Likewise, every time it keeps checking. Okay, so in the next case, it becomes 6, but 6 is not in the range of this one. So what will happen? The control comes to the immediate next statement after for. So the immediate, there is no statement here. So the program will exit. Okay, so this is the output of this particular for. Okay, in the next case, what we have done is here in this particular first for loop, we have given two parameters inside the range. Okay, so we have given the beginning and end, both we have given inside the range. Okay, so the beginning and end, both we have given. In this particular case, we are simply giving 5. Okay, so what does this mean? That whenever you're giving only one argument inside your range function, it means that it will produce numbers from 0 till n minus 1. So if you are saying range n, okay, so if you are simply saying range n, okay, so what will be the outcome of it, or the number of elements in the sequence? The number of elements in the sequence will be, the object will be holding values from 0 to n minus 1. So here I said 5, right? So n is equal to 5. So what it will do, it will produce numbers from 0 till n minus 1, which is 5 minus 1, which is 4. Okay, so this will be the outcome of this particular second program. Okay, now let us take a look into the third program. Now this is a program wherein rather than printing the numbers one after the other, I just have printed it in a single line by using the end statement. So end is equal to, I have put a space. So rather than putting it in the new lines, it will put it in a single line separated by spaces. Okay, and the range I have mentioned 1 to 5, which means that 1 to 4 numbers will be printed. And in this case, in exercise number 4, in example number 4, what I have given is, I have given 3 arguments. Okay, so I have given 3 arguments. The first one is the beginning, and the second one is the end, and the third one is the number of steps to increment. So here I said 2, which means that I is equal to I plus 2. Okay, so which means that, which is equal to I is equal to I plus 2. Okay, so I'm making a 2-step increment over here. So what it will do, so 1 plus 2 will be 3, 3 plus 2 will be 5, 5 plus 2 will be 7, 7 plus 2 will be 9, 9 plus 2 will be 11, but 11 is out of this range. Okay, so because it will print only till end minus 1, which is 9, so 11 will not work. So 11 will not print, and it will come to the immediate statement after for. There is no statement, so it will just exit from the program. Okay, so this is example number 4. Now coming to example number 5. Okay, so we want to sum and average the first 10 numbers using for. So this is the same program that I have written for the while loop, but I just have taken it in the for. Okay, similar program. There I said I is equal to 0, and I said I is less than or equal to 10. I said I is equal to 1. First 10 numbers, right? So I said I is equal to 1. And then I said I is less than or equal to 10, and I have said I is equal to I plus 1. So 3 different looping constructs I have used, the initialization condition and the increment and decrement. Here I don't need to bother it. I just need to iterate through the sequence of numbers. So first I said sum is equal to 0 because I want to find out the sum. So I'm saying sum is equal to 0. This is my logic. And then I said I in the range of 1 to 10, right? So to get a 10, I need to give 11 here because it's n minus 1. Okay, and here I'm saying sum is equal to sum plus I. This is lower I. Okay, so it is sum plus I. So you know this logic. Okay, so if the number has gone out of this particular range, the for will stop and it will come to the immediate next statement, which is average. So I'm saying average is equal to sum by 10. So it will perform an average, and this is how I'm printing the output according to my requirement. So I'm saying sum is equal to, and the sum is printed, the average is also printed over here. So this is working out the same program of finding the sum and average of the 10 numbers, which I have shown you with while. Now I have shown you with for. So this is another simple program wherein we are printing the multiplication table of a number, and the desired table, you are reading it from the user. Okay, so you're taking input from the user. So input will be mentioning what kind of multiplication table he wants. Okay, so he wants 2 or 3 or 20 or 120 or whatever. So that you're reading it from the user. So you're producing the steps till 10 only. Okay, so you're say producing the multiplication table till step 10. Okay, so that's why you're saying n minus 1, which will be 10. So till 10. And this is how I'm formatting my output. So I want my output to look like a multiplication table. So this is how I have formatted my print statement so that it looks like a multiplication table. Okay, so here the user have given 4. So I have given 4 over here. So you can see the multiplication table is produced till 10. Okay, so if you want the multiplication table to produce till 20 steps, I have to give 1 comma 21 here. Okay, so likewise you can produce and you can format your print statement in such a way that whatever you want, you can make that appear on your monitor. So this is another program wherein we are using for to find out whether the given number is even or odd. A number is even if it is divisible by 2 and odd if it is not divisible by 2. So a simple logic is applied over here. So if it is divisible by 2, the remainder will be 0. If it is not divisible by 2, it will be non-zero. So applying the simple logic there, we have found out whether the given number is even or odd. Rather than taking a single number, what I have done over here is I have read the range over here. So the range is from 1 to 10. Okay, so the range is from 1 to 10. And from the numbers 1 to 10, I want all the numbers which are odd and all the numbers which are even. So herein I have mentioned the variables as the range variables here. Okay, so just to show you, rather than like maybe you might think that I just have to give a constants inside the range variable. No, other than the constants, you can also give variables. You can also give expressions inside your range variable. So herein you can see that I have given an expression here. I said y plus 1. Even that is possible. You can give such things without, they do not cause error. So to just show you that, I have written this program. Okay, fine. So x comma y plus 1. Okay, so I gave an expression as well as a variable inside the range function. So now x is equal to 1. Since I want till 10, I made this as 11. Now it will iterate through each and every number. So for 1, first it will check first 1 mod 2 is equal to 0. So it is 1 itself. So it will print 1 is odd. In the next case, 2, it takes the 2 from the sequence and checks whether 2 is there in the sequence or not. S2 is there in the sequence. So now it enters into the for block and checks 2 mod 2 is equal to 0. S2 is even. Likewise, it checks each and every value in the object and each and everything in the range, and then consecutively prints whether it is even or odd based on the logic we have written. Now the point is your logic should be correct for you to get the proper output. This I kept on telling you. Okay, so if your program is if your steps are wrong, your output will be wrong. So you should be very careful in writing the code. Next is finding out the factorial of a number using the for loop. We all know factorial of a number is like, if I say 5 factorial, it is equal to 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, or 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5. Okay, so any of the format is okay, but we say 5 into 4 into because we are accustomed to recursion. Okay, so why we are saying 5 into 4 into 3 is because in programming we go to the last one and then come back, right? Okay, so we call it on 5. Then to find out the factorial of 5, we need the factorial of 4. So this is how your recursion works. And then you say you need to find out the factorial of 4, you need the factorial of 3. So this is how you reach to the anchor condition and then reverse back and come back to execute each and everything. Okay. So that's how your recursion works. So that's why we say 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 and all that. So herein, since it is multiplication, the variable that I have take fact should be 1, because if I say 0 0 into something, any number, even if it is small or big or whatever, the outcome is 0. So your logic should be in such a way that it produces the correct output. That's what I'm telling you. That is there in your hands. Okay, what the programming language teaches you is how to write a for, what is the syntax of for, and all that it teaches. but how to build the logic for a particular program, the programming language will not teach you. It is your brain that you should write the logic for a specified computational problem. Being programmers, it is your responsibility to write the solution for the computational problems. Okay, right. The programming language will just teach you what are the available features and how you have to use them in the programming without getting any syntax errors. That's it. Okay, writing the logic is in your hands. Now we said like this is the syntax and within the range. So we are saying x plus 1 to reach to x. Okay, and then this is the logic. We are saying fact is equal to fact into I, and then we are printing the x. This is how I want the output to be, the factorial of x. Okay, so whatever I give, so here I gave 5. So the factorial of 5 is 120 will be printed on the screen. Next example. Okay, so this is the next example wherein I'm checking whether a given number is prime or not. So I have written certain logic over here. Okay, so you can apply any of the logic that you wanted. So I am taking in the number. So say I have taken 17. So whenever you're checking, okay, so if there is a question like check, it means that there will be two outcomes. Okay, so whether it will be true or false or prime or not prime. So you always have to generate two outcomes, two outputs for such kind of checking of the problems and all that. Okay, right. So I have given it. So I gave flag is equal to 0. The concept of the prime number is that according to the mathematical notation, prime number is a number which is divisible by 1 and itself only. You should not forget this only, because every number is divisible by 1 and itself. But other than 1 and itself, the non-prime numbers are divisible by some other numbers as well. But prime numbers are something which are divisible by 1 and itself only. So they'll just have two factors. What are these two? One, which is 1 and then comma by itself. Okay, so whatever is the number, it will have. But every other number also will have 1 and n. But apart from this, they also will have some extra factors. So taking this logic into consideration, so what we are doing is we are checking for whether it is divisible by any other number other than 1 and itself. So we'll be starting with the numbers. So checking of this. Okay, say that my number is 7. I want to check whether 7 is prime number or not. So I know that the factors of 7 are 1 and 7 itself. So why I need to check? Not only 7. If I take the 10, okay, so if I take a number 10, 10 is divisible by 1 and 10 itself. So these, so I'm ignoring that. What I'm considering over here is I want to find out whether it is divisible by numbers from 2 to n minus 1, which is still 6. Okay, so from 2 to 6 I will be doing, where n is 7. So I'll be processing it till n minus 1. So anyway, according to your end, okay, so whatever is your x, it will take x minus 1. So I am simply giving x over here because it will take till x minus 1. Now I am checking whether it is divisible. Okay, so divisible by 2. Okay, then I'll check for 3 and all that. If it is divisible, 0, if I get an outcome, reminder 0, it means that it is divisible and it is not prime. To know that it is not prime and it is divisible by this number, I'm having a flag over here wherein I'm changing the bit of the flag to 1. Okay, and then I'm coming out of the loop, because if it is divisible by any of the number, there is no reason in checking for the other numbers over here. So it is divisible, right? So there is no point in continuing the loop. So I break. So what happens here is when I use a break statement, anyway, I'll explain it in the next concept. So the break statement will make you come out of the immediate for loop. So here there is only one for loop. So the control will come out of this for loop and go to the next immediate statement after the for. Okay, so the immediate statement after the for is this one. Okay, so it will check if flag is equal to 1. If flag is equal to 1, it means that it was divisible by numbers between 2 and n minus 1. So it is not a prime number. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll say that it is not a prime number. So when I have given 8, what happened is it is divisible by 2 itself. Okay, so 2 divided by, like 8 divided by 2, it is producing me a remainder which is 0. Okay, so obviously 8 is not a prime. So when it is producing a remainder 0, I said flag is equal to 1. And I came out of the loop. I didn't check it 3, I didn't check 4, I didn't check 5 till 7. Okay, so 8 minus 1 is 7. So actually I need to check these all things. But since 2 itself is divisible, there itself I got a confirmation that it is not prime. So that's why I have used a break over here and came out of the loop. So now I have printed that number 8 is not prime. So coming to 17, okay, so 7, okay, so we'll take an example of 7. 17 is, I have to show you all the numbers. So 7 is better. So what I'm doing, so for 7, I have to check from 2 to n minus 1, which is 6. So first for 2, it is checking, okay, 7 mod 2. It is not producing a reminder 0. Okay, so then it is checking for 3. Okay, 7 mod 3, no 0. 7 mod 4, no 0. 7 mod 5, no 0. 7 mod 6, no 0. So what happened? All the elements inside the range have been iterated. So what will happen is this if will never execute here, but the range is over. So the loop variable has iterated through all the numbers in the range. So what happens? It comes out of the loop, come to the immediate next statement after the loop. So what is there? Flag is equal to 1. So flag is not 1 because it never entered into the if block over here. So flag is only 0. Flag is what we have set it initially. So flag is 0. So this if condition has evaluated to be false now. So what happens? It comes to this else part and then print that x is prime number. So this is how you write your logic. Okay. So so this is a simple program wherein we are checking whether a given number is prime or not. Is it clear, girls?
Clear, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
coming to
Yes.
another example, this is the last example of your for. Okay. So herein I just wanted to show you how to iterate through a string. Okay. So sequence of this is also a sequence of characters. So I said for x in Sudha. Okay, and I'm printing x. So what happens? It will iterate through each and every character. Okay, so each and every character it will iterate through and it will print all the characters in the sequence for me in the output. So for with the strings, to show how you use for with the strings, I have given you this example. Is it clear, everybody?
Yes, ma'am.